Namaste, good afternoon. Welcome everyone on the podcast. And today we are going to talk about a wonderful topic which has not been talked enough, and that is art of apologizing. I have with me Ms. Kanchan Dora and myself, Neetu Dora. We'll be running this podcast for you today. About Kanchan, she's a banker and she's a certified results coach who has coached many participants, many students, not only at her workplace, but also from different countries. She has been very active in coaching of different generations. Welcome, Kanchan, to the podcast. And myself is Neetu. I have been a training specialist more than 21 years in the training industry and recently a certified yoga instructor. So I welcome you all on this podcast. Welcome, Kanchan.
Thank you, Neetu. It's a pleasure to be here with you, speaking about a very exciting, interesting, not enough talked about topic, art of apologizing. Thank you.
This is the topic which is more heartfelt or more mind felt rather than it is a tongue felt topic. So I think it is very essential to explore this in details as it forms the base of every relationship. We are humans, and relationship maintenance is something that is very important, very essential for our existence. And this is the reason why we have chosen this topic today. And so, what are your views on apologizing?
Sure. Thank you, Neetu. And I think, as you said, it's a very important topic. As human beings, we are bound to make mistakes as we move through our life. And when we make those mistakes, it usually involves an exchange of apology, whether you're receiving an apology or you're giving an apology. Now, we've been trained on a lot of things in life. We get trained on different subjects like mathematics, if you want to be a banking professional, and if you want to be an expert into computer science, the education system provides you with that kind of specialization and education. When it comes to apology, it's central to our relationships. And relationships is something that we as human beings need to survive and thrive. We're never trained that how do you say that apology. Never get educated on what an heartfelt apology looks like. And I think that's why it's very exciting topic to discuss. It's usually not explored in depth as we move through life.
Absolutely, Kanchan. I think we've been conditioned from our childhood, from the way in terms of apologizing. So when you hurt someone physically or you've hurted someone emotionally, and when you are small, you just kind of just say sorry and probably don't mean it because that is not heartfelt. That's the conditioning that's speaking. So when we grow up, we start encountering different situations, which then you realize slowly and gradually, so something is really needed, and that may be to understand the emotions of the other person.
I want to explore if you've hurt someone and you think you need to apologize. What do you feel when that happens?
It's a close relationship. The very first thing is, I've done something wrong, so I must apologize. Yeah. That's the first feeling that I get. I believe in a theory which says, once you have a thread and once the thread is broken, you do have that knot, and you definitely do not want knotted relationship with your loved one. So that's the first thing is, you have some guilt. Then with that guilt, probably you go to that person or apologize or explain the situation.
Yeah, beautiful. Exactly. So what you just mentioned is the feelings of guilt, and there could be an aspect of shame. These are not very comfortable emotions, and hence it doesn't get really talked about. It brings that feeling that you don't want to explore, we just want to avoid it. So what tends to happen sometimes with me is if there is an argument, or I have this tendency to just bypass the apology, especially if it's a close relationship. Very quickly just move on to the next thing, just go about my day as if that never happened. That argument, that hurt, it never existed, because I want to bypass that feeling of feeling guilt, feeling shame or burden. So, I'd love to hear more if that resonates with you.
It does. In fact, I think most of the times I did follow the same approach where tend to ignore whatever has happened, and maybe whatever comes as an aftermath, maybe that has impacted me a lot. In fact, I think when I was not mature enough, or somebody didn't guide me professionally, I think it happened in the school time. I'll actually share one experience here. Four girls who were a group of friends, and we had some disagreements, and the disagreement went so huge. We were so closely knit, and then ultimately there was a bit of separation, that we can say. We were quite close friends, and that happened, and everybody was shocked. When some school teachers had to intervene in between and coach us and guide us at that time, telling us that you should apologize with each other and then make things normal. I think that was my first instance of a way of looking at apologizing, that maybe yes, I am wrong in some way or the other. I didn't have guilt, but then just to mend the situation, because these people have been very close friends. So that's one thing that happened, that you need an additional counseling and a coaching to show you that different part of yourself, or sometimes you don't know how to do it. We probably were not knowing at that time, how do I apologize? How do I go ahead and say sorry? So that ego was coming up again and again. And that is a big problem, because how to manage yourself, how to manage your ego at that stage when you are in such a situation. So that is something that I think people would not like to talk about. People don't want to take that additional help. People don't want to take external help, because they feel that something is going out from their within. So I think that's something that everyone should reconsider, that there's no harm in taking an additional help.
Yeah. Why it's important to have a heartfelt apology. And there are three factors to it. So one is, it's a gift to the others. And what I mean by that is, when you're giving the apology to someone, it's a gift to the others, because in that moment you are giving them the validation that they exist. You're giving them acceptance, and you're giving them your presence, right? So when, let's say, someone has done something wrong to you, you feel angry, defensive, there could be lots of negative emotions. And when you allow that apology to happen, in that process, you're giving that gift to the other person. You're validating their feelings. You may or may not agree with everything that the other person's saying, but even just having that dialogue and that communication, that itself is a gift to the other. And this heartfelt apology is also a gift to yourself. As you said, there is ego in that example, right? There is defensiveness. How do you overcome that? You only overcome that by allowing yourself to be uncomfortable, because you understand that there is a better and a deeper meaning to this relationship. And in that process, when you allow yourself to sit with the uncomfortable emotions, and you're having this exchange with the other person, you're growing as a person. So even giving an apology, when you feel guilt, when you feel shame, that is still an expansive growth in yourself when you accept those emotions, because then you're accepting the person who you are, you're taking the accountability, you're taking the responsibility for your actions. And in that space, a massive growth is happening, which is internal growth. You're giving yourself a gift. And most importantly, it's also a gift to the relationship. You might have heard that it's not really important that whether you're right or I'm wrong. What's important is the relationship survives and it thrives. So I think by that apology, you untie those knots, you're breaking the barriers and the defensiveness that has come in between. And then you just let everything melt. It's like a melting ice cube, right? And what you're allowing is that relationship to then thrive in that space. So that's why a heartfelt apology is important.
Wow, wonderfully captured, Kanchan. I totally agree, because when you value that relationship and you want to do something for the relationship, then really apologizing should not be difficult, and the ego should not stand in front of you when you are apologizing. So this topic is talking about art of apologizing, because many people have very different ways of apologizing. I've seen many people apologizing, right from the child, right from my children to my close ones, and there are different kinds of sorries that you have actually seen. How do another person know that you are actually sorry? So, is there anything like to throw some light on how do we know that this apologizing is really heartfelt or not?
Yes, when it comes to a heartfelt apology, bringing your authentic self and ensuring that you take the accountability of every action and your behavior. It has to start from you. A few pointers to remember. Number one, remove all the ifs and buts. So don't make your apology conditional, because again, that invalidates your
Correct.
apology.
Because you're adding a condition to your apology then, and then you don't want to condition that sorry to someone where you want it to be heartfelt, and heartfelt doesn't have buts. Ifs and buts is just condition. It's a human made condition. So that will nullify the whole impact of your apologizing. Be your own self, and it's like clearing your own. From the yogic perspective, if I see, it is clearing your own negative emotion in one way or the other, thinking about the other person, in empathetic, managing their emotions, because you kind of hurt someone, and yoga believes in not hurting someone. Ahimsa is the first lesson of yoga. And if you have by default impacted anyone, or if you have knowingly or not knowingly hurted someone, then definitely you have broken that one rule. Ahimsa Parama Dharma. This is what we say in yoga. So your responsibility is to make sure that you do not do any kind of hinsa to anybody's emotions, anybody's feelings, anybody's state of the mentality. So immediately apologize. Shama Yachna has another aspect in yoga, which I'll probably touch upon while we close the session. But uh, it has to be heartfelt.
Number two, do not repeat the same mistake again, because then that invalidates your apology.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Number three, you listen to understand rather than listen to respond. And number four, you bring your presence into the relationship, and you do it through breath work. Your yoga practitioner, trainer, I think you can probably elaborate on tools and ways how we can slow down our breath.
Absolutely. And you've touched upon a very good instance where not every time we realize that somebody is demanding an apology from us. Sometimes your brain comes to a fight or a flight situation when you have least expected it, when you have somebody coming over to you and say, you hurted me. So, the brain immediately goes off into that situation of a fight or a flight. And at that time, if you are conscious enough, if you have that conscious ability to not move to a fight kind of a situation and move to control your emotions, and then realize for yourself, you just focus on your breath. And definitely yoga has a variety of ways which can actually help any human being going into that situation, and that is why we focus on the breathe work. And there are many different techniques of doing breathing exercises, breathing pranayams are been known to cure many diseases coming from these fight or flight situations, and also even different practices. I am practicing a Buddhist practice, which is Anapanasati, it's a breath work technique, which works wonderfully in terms of such situations. So you don't forcefully breathe in or breathe out. You just kind of notice where your breath is going, and that's it. And so you can control your emotions in such states. So that if somebody comes over to you and say, I am hurt by you or you hurted me, so rather than moving into a fight mode, go on to a different mode, balance out your emotions, and only then you should be able to say sorry from heart. Otherwise, it will be just wise words coming from a wise mouth, and probably will have a lesser impact if we do it otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also another thing to add is just be curious. If you're coming up to me and telling me that I've hurt you, then I think you should just be curious and ask questions that what did I do that upset you? And I think sometimes just that curiosity can just bring even more closeness into a relationship.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderfully captured and wonderfully said, Kanchan. Thank you for summarizing. Before we end this session, I'd like to say one shlok, one Sanskrit shlok, and I'll explain the meaning to you. And with that, with my hands together, asking for forgiveness, the shloka says, Kar charna kritam vak, kavajam karmanam va, shravanam na nadavam va, manasam vaparadha, vihita ma vihitam va sarvametat shamasva. Jai Jai Karuna Bandhe Sri Mahadeva Shambhu. It means whatever I have done with my hands or feet or my or any actions, what I have heard or seen or thought, all my mistakes, whether knowingly or unknowingly, please forgive them all. Great, all forgiving God, Mahadev Shambhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neetu. That was beautiful. Number of things, and